Hello and welcome to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. My name's Rich Natoli, your regular host of the show, and I'm really excited about this episode. We're not going to spend a lot of time. Got a lot of feedback. I need to shut up at the beginning of these and roll real quick into the guests, and you've been heard. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback, and I'll continue to get better. I just want to go through real quick sponsors. Make sure that you support sponsors of the show. And if you're not in a position to support these specific sponsors, support your local businesses. Always going to say that. Great Bay Outfitters in the chat right now is Paul. Unless he's sharing it with somebody else, the account. Paul's in there. If you're looking for anything kayak fishing related in New Jersey, I definitely recommend you stop by what I consider my home shop, Great Bay Outfitters. On Radio Road in Tuckerton, on your way down to the Great Bay, swing by, tell Paul and his staff hello, and man, you'll be able to pick up whatever you need. So definitely recommend heading by there. And then if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in southeastern Pennsylvania, I am also sponsoring this show. I am a real estate agent with Keller Williams in southeastern Pennsylvania. Our team does stretch into New Jersey, and I do have people that I work with regularly in Delaware, Virginia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. So, and Maryland, actually. So I have most of the coast covered. So if you need any help, reach out. My contact information is in the front of this intro. Richard Natoli at kw.com. If you want to just shoot me an email, my phone number and everything is in there as well. But with that said, we're going to skip right into this show. And this one is with a guy that I have spoken to in the past and fished with in the past, author, and just an outstanding fisherman fishing the Chesapeake Bay, well, and other areas. But Bob Lombardi, welcome to the stream. It is great to see you.
It's great to see you, Rich. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked, and I'd mentioned that we've been fishing together a couple of times. You need to refresh my memory because I think I'm right about this, but I'm not quite sure. The first time that we went fishing together in Baltimore, was that the bridge that collapsed that we were fishing?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we came out of Bear Creek. And we came out of Bear Creek, and then it opens up into the Patapsco, and the bridge is off to the right.
I remember when that happened. I said to my wife, I said, "That's where Bob and I were." She's like, "Who's this Bob, and where did he put you?" And I said, "Yeah, right next to the bridge in Baltimore." She's like, "Oh,
yeah."
And she's like, "Yeah, the same bridge." I was like, "Yeah." We were literally sitting right where that thing hit. We were fishing that exact piling.
Yes, we were. Yeah, because I remember when we were coming out, I went to the right. I went up the river towards the bridge, and you went to the south. And the whole time I'm going north, and you're going south. I'm thinking, man, does he know something I don't?
So I didn't. Not that day.
Neither one of us did that day. We both took the skunk.
Yeah, that was a tough day, but it's. I'll tell you what a great location to fish.
Yeah.
I mean, it just had everything. Everything from the little creeks. Tons of structure, tons of places to go. And the one place that I thought that we would really get into them in those shallows, they just weren't there.
No, I remember the water was still pretty cold. We were in dry suits, as I remember, right?
Yes, we were.
So, yeah, that's always a miserable experience.
Yeah,
but the water was cold, and the only place we were going to find them were going to be on the drop off, sitting on ledges or maybe suspended. But we took our chances. It didn't work out, but that's fishing.
It was fun, and it was good. I had never fished that Baltimore area like that before, so it was great. I fished the Chesapeake, but typically I'm on the eastern shore, and I'm not over in that area.
Yeah.
But there's something really cool about being able to launch in Baltimore and just being able to be on the water and fish.
You wouldn't believe the fishery that is Baltimore Harbor. The entire Patapsco River. I mean, I think guys fish most of their lives. I don't think they ever come off the river. It is really that good a fishery. It's amazing. And like you said, where we launched from at Bear Creek, you have shallow, you have grass, you have hard structure, you have soft structure, you have drop offs, you have the channel, you've got pilings and piers. It's depending on the time of the year, you can always find a viable place to fish. So it really is
Yeah.
it's a place that I've spent a lot of hours. That's for sure.
Yeah, and with good reason. I mean, we didn't have a good day, but what a great area
Yeah,
with tons of spots. I mean,
yeah,
we and those piers that we were
yeah,
fishing. Oh my God, there are literally hundreds of spots in this
yes,
area,
yeah,
and we covered it pretty good. But it was just, man, and I bring it up for a reason. I bring it up for a reason because there are a lot of people that are going to watch this either live or after it's done, or listen to the podcast, who fish the coast primarily. And one of the things that got me down to the Chesapeake to start, like, it's not that far. It's like 2 hours,
no,
hour and a
mhm,
half to 2 hours from where I live, which is, by the way, the same amount of time it takes me to get to the coast. And if what originally got me down there was the wind was terrible for the coast. It was just terrible. And we have that right now on New Jersey's coast. The wind has just been brutal for fishermen, but it wasn't so bad if I went down to the Chesapeake.
mhm.
It just wasn't so bad. So um, I was like, all right, I'll go down there. So I went down with my buddy Randy, and he showed me some places that he went on the Y. And man, I fell in love with it. And I mentioned before, you wrote the book. Well, two books,
Right,
right? Two
two
books
books.
on fishing the Chesapeake. So why don't you kind of outline those books for everyone, and let's just jump in and let's just start talking.
All right. Well, I guess the books really go back to the origins. Go back to the Facebook page, Current Break Kayak Fishing. Um, I was fishing a lot. The more I fished, the more I ended up down on the lower eastern shore, anywhere from really Kent Narrows down to the Fisherman's Island, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. And it turned out that was a place that I really grew to love kayak fishing, where it was, messing around at Patapsco and all that, and the boat traffic and all that was becoming less and less appealing. And so I ended up going down south more and more. The water was warmer, it was quieter, I didn't have to deal with anybody. I fished by myself. It was like, it was heaven. It's heaven. So I started this Facebook page because as I was posting more pictures, I had guys messaging me. Where'd you catch him? How did you do it? What are you using? Where are you going? I had all these questions, right?
Right.
So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to start a page and post the pictures and answer people's questions and go from there. So that's what I did, and it just sort of it just exploded out of that. Now we got close to 600 people on the page, and it's really been a blessing. And that's kind of the same way that the books came around. To make a long story short, the more I posted on the page and I was talking about tackle and things like that, the more questions I was getting. I was getting in the summer and the spring, I was getting like 2 or 3 inquiries a day. Where were you? What were you using? Varying questions. I was sitting right here one day, and I just put out a message. I said, if I wrote a book about this area, how many people would buy it? Right? Who would be interested in it? Right. So I put,
Well, I bought it.
thank you. So I got like 40 responses immediately, like positive, yes, buy it. I'm the first one, stuff like that. So I said, it looks like I'm writing a book. So I decided to write the first book, which is this book, which you've already seen. And they're both available on Amazon. And the sales of this book has been shocking. When I first wrote it, I thought, if I sell, well, I had 40 responses. If I sell 40, 50 books and I help 40, 50 guys catch more fish, that's cool, right? Mission accomplished. Well,
Right.
we've sold a lot more than, than 40, 50 books. And the feedback has been really remarkable. This book really outlines everything from really the Kent Narrows area all the way down to Fisherman's Island and the Kipta Peak area.
Right.
Um,
So before you go further, for those that are not watching and are going to be listening later, can you read the title of the book so
Oh,
that they know where to look for it?
I'm sorry. Right there. Kayak Fishing the Lower Eastern Shore of Maryland and Virginia, and it is available on Amazon. Just go to
Yep.
Amazon and search Bob Lombardi, and both books come right up.
Yep. Yeah, you can buy them together.
Yeah, you can buy them together. They're linked together. So so the first book was things like where to go, right? Fishable locations. Um, the, let's see. I'm trying to think what would be in the best order. Where to go? How to find places where you want to go. In other words, there's a whole section in there on using Google Earth and other resources to find good locations. Target areas like mud banks and creeks and river mouths and things like this, and how to target them specifically. There's a big section on tackle, what I like to use, or at least what works for me. Lots of people use lots of different things and are equally or is more successful. Um,
Right.
so it was just sort of a general where to where to go, how to do it, sort of book. And like I said, it's been really rewarding.
I look at your posts, and one of the things that's always interesting to me is where you are. And I don't need all the details, but you put a really good description of the type of area. So I'm not saying where you are, like this latitude and longitude, but you
Hmm.
put really good descriptions of this is the type of area I'm fishing. It's this depth to this depth.
Yeah,
I have grass here, but the grass hasn't grown in yet.
right.
So this is what I did. This is where the wind was coming from, and here's how I adjusted. Um, I just really think that I've been very lucky. I've met a lot of really, really good fishermen since I started doing this, and a lot before as well. But since I started doing this, and you're one of them, and I remember going out with you, and I was just like, I'm just going to kind of sit back, and I kind of watched you. And I remember we came out of that creek and we came out to the hole, where it just opened up,
Yeah.
and you took a right. And I'm like, why is he taking a right? I want to go and fish this channel. And you were off. And I was like, I'm going right. So I turned around and I started going. And then I start seeing things. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of structure here. I thought it was flat. And it wasn't flat.
Mm-mm.
There was trees. I don't know what was down there. I think it might have been like old cars down in this mud. There was everything down there, and there was structure. And you could see the fish too.
Yeah, and
Just
there's
didn't get them to
a
bite.
lot of old pilings and piers down in there. So there's lots of submerged hard structure. So depending on where you are, you have to be a little more careful. It seems like the further you go up in the bay or up the river, up into to the up towards the inner harbor area, it can get a bit hazard on the Hobie fins. Trying
Yeah.
to fish shallow water. I bent more than a couple rods up there looking for stripers and skinny water where there used to be piers and trolleys and streetcars and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff up in the water there. So, but I don't do that anymore. I'm down where I'm fishing in 2 to 3 feet of water and 4 feet of water maybe, and I can see to the bottom and the grass is there and it's quiet and I'm by myself and
Yeah.
no boats to avoid, and nobody bothers me, and there's no trash in the water, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, that's a big thing. If you watch me when I'm striped bass fishing, and I haven't done it this year, I don't plan on doing it in the spring, but go to years past, there's always people around me.
Yeah,
I'm in the places where everybody is. And I think that's one of the really cool things is, you wrote the book, but you wrote the book by exploring, and you went places where a lot of people aren't going, and you were
yeah.
wildly successful doing it because you knew how to approach them. What's a let's take it from this direction right now. Okay, so it's the 28th of April when we're doing this.
Hmm.
I realize it's still cold, so it's not normal. So let's just say it's a normal year, an average year on this date. What type of area are you looking for specifically for the striped bass right now?
Well, unfortunately, in Maryland striped bass is closed.
Right. So let's ignore that.
Okay.
Let's ignore that. I'm just looking at the behavior of the species right now.
Okay. If I'm ignoring that, well, the migratory fish are coming up the bay, so the large fish are would be in play, but they are not because the state of Maryland has closed the season because of the deterioration of the fishery.
Right.
That's a whole different story. That's a whole different controversy. But you have the large migratory fish coming up. And basically, what I'm looking for is water temperature and opportunity given the weather. Really, in the first book and in both books, they're both about matching conditions and opportunity. So if we take tide and wind and the moon, and I know where the grass is, I know where the drops are, I know where the islands are, I know where the productive points are, I know how the current flows, on the drop or on the rise. I'm targeting those areas. For example, I went out 2 weeks ago, one location in Virginia, one location in Maryland. Water temperature was 53 to 57 degrees. Um, in the Virginia location, didn't find a fish. Didn't, and I was surprised. I thought I would find at least a couple rockfish on some points that I'm familiar with, but never did. In
Right.
Maryland, I did. Now I'm not looking for rockfish. I know I'm not targeting rockfish. I'm targeting speckled trout because me, springtime is speckled trout season. So to me, it's a matter of when that water and the conditions are going to turn enough to bring those speckled trout out of the depths and into the shallows. Because in the springtime, those big girls come up 25, 26, 28, 29 inches. They come up and they can be found in 2, 3, 4 feet of water over grass flats. So whatever
Right.
I'm doing this time of year, I'm not looking for rockfish. I'm looking for speckled trout. If I catch a
Gotcha.
rockfish, it's treated very sweetly, given a kiss, and sent back on its way. But basically, right now it's water temperature. So that was 2 weeks ago. Now, last week I went back and made the exact same trip. Virginia spot first, the Maryland spot second, because I wanted to compare the two a week apart, given the
Right.
weather conditions. The water temperature, when I went back a week later at both locations, was 8 to 10 degrees higher than it was the previous week.
Oh wow, that's a nice change.
Yeah, it was a significant change, and I found rockfish. They haven't still found any speckled trout, but I did find rockfish, nice rockfish. They're posted on Current Break if anybody wants to take a look, at both locations. So right now it's water temperature. I think this week is still a transition week.
Yeah.
Um, to me, next week and all through May, I think it's going to just blow up. I think it's going to blow up with rockfish in the shallows and particularly speckled trout, and eventually the redfish will start coming into, and we'll start finding puppy drum and slot reds in the shallows as well.
Right. So what's your so when are you going to target the striped bass again, the rockfish?
Well, I have a tournament that's coming up. The moratorium, or this closure, ends May the 15th.
Yeah.
So after that, the season's open. So I have a tournament, the Smith Island tournament, that weekend, and I'll be down in Janes Island. I'll be camping down there all weekend, probably going back and forth there between there and Virginia, various locations. So probably beginning of the week, the 15th.
Okay. Now, would you be doing that if what I'm trying to get at is, are you switching primarily to specs and then eventually reds, or are you not? Are you going to go back to just going out and targeting the rockfish after the moratorium's over?
No, truth is, I don't target rockfish very much.
Okay,
I
that's what I thought.
No, to me, you know, I don't want this to sound wrong, but rockfish are almost a bycatch
Yeah.
because I'm out there targeting specks and redfish, and I can always go find rockfish.
Sure. Right.
So I'm not really concerned about that. But I know if I leave a certain launch area and I'm in an area that I know of, I know that if I go 600 yards that way and work that flat on the south edge, I know I'm going to catch a trout, or I have a very good opportunity to catch a trout. But I also know that if I stay where I'm at and I'm waiting for this tide to move a little bit, if I stay on these 2 points, I'm going to be able to catch rockfish.
Yeah. Right.
So, because even though you're in the same area, the difference in the fish really changes how you target each one individually. And if you want to catch a rockfish, stay here. You want to go catch some trout, we'll go over there.
Right. Right. And it's funny because I brought that up last week in the live stream. I was talking about finding flounder spots. And I made the point, an area is not a spot. Right.
Yeah,
There are
yeah,
so many different spots within an area, and a lot of people confuse them. And they'll say, well, I was at this spot because that's what everybody calls it. But it's really not.
right,
A spot can be, a 3 by 10 foot area, within a spot within the
yeah,
area. And the
yeah,
area could be this creek mouth,
yeah.
but that's not the spot,
It's a it's it's a it's a point that's 4 feet wide that has a 6 foot hole on the back side. You know, uh,
Right.
you know, just beyond a ledge where there's a grass flat. That's a
Right.
spot.
Yeah, and
That's a
it
spot.
it does it takes some work to find those sometimes because, look, I like the point about Google Earth and some of these other things with the satellite imagery, but it's one of those things that time on the water is really going to matter because you're not going to notice the riffle coming off that one mostly submerged boulder
Mm-mm,
necessarily, and the
mm-mm.
boulder may only be 3 feet wide,
Right.
and that could hold 10 fish,
Oh,
10 fish
absolutely.
behind it.
Yeah, I was fishing. I would think it was Tangier Classic tournament several years ago. I mean, 1 point. I mean, this was a strip island that's maybe 20 feet wide and 40 feet long. And I took 7 fish off that point in about 8 casts.
Man,
And it was 6 rockfish and a red, or 7 and 1, something like that.
yeah, yeah,
But that's not unusual. But you've got to match the location to the conditions, and that's what the books are. All both of these books can be summed up in that one sentence. How do you match the location and the conditions to catch what you're targeting? So,
so what are some of the spot types that you would be going through in the book?
I love grass flats. The
Yeah,
lower eastern shore of Maryland is just covered with the most beautiful, clear water, grass flats that you can imagine. 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 feet of visibility. I was coming out of the location in Virginia and ran across a couple redfish and a ray. They were oriented. The redfish are oriented to the rays, and they're just laying in the grass, and it's just water was absolutely crystal clear. So, I mean, that's the kind of environment that I exclusively fish in now. So, to me, it's about the solitude of it. I love to fish areas where I'm the only one fishing for miles and miles and miles and
yeah,
miles. And that's not meant for everybody, because I cover, a lot of water some days, and I'm pretty darn isolated. And people ask me, well, how do you do that? Well, it's just what you do. You have to have confidence in yourself and take care of your
right.
equipment and know what you're doing, and all of that. But I just love these areas. So, grass flats, and this is where the May target is. It's primarily grass flats.
Okay.
Now, if I'm going out on the grass flats on a low tide, all right, I'm going to be moving further offshore to hit a target depth.
Okay.
If I'm targeting rockfish, I might catch rockfish on those flats. I may or may not. But if I know I'm going to have a very good tide and I'm looking for a couple rockfish, I'm going to go up in the creeks. I'm going to be looking for current flow and bait fish up in the creeks. Now the creeks can get real skinny. We're talking skinnier than the kayak.
Yeah.
So boat handling can be a real challenge up in there. But if that current's flowing and there's bait up in there, there's going to be rockfish, but you're not going to find any trout up in there. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I mean it's this place you'll find that place you'll find that. Um, and then I said, the further south you go, the more opportunity you have to run into the real prize, which is the redfish,
Right.
which is like a rockfish on steroids.
So how far north have you caught reds?
The furthest I've caught a redfish, I know of them being caught in the Severn River in Annapolis.
Yeah.
Puppies. I've heard
Yeah.
of them being caught up in where we launched at Bear Creek.
Yeah.
I heard of them being caught up in there. I haven't seen that. But I would say the really the maybe the line of demarcation there is maybe like the Chop Tank River south, and the
Right. That's where you have a really a much better chance at targeting them, right?
yeah. If you're gonna target, you're gonna target the big ones, the like the charter captains and all of that. You can go out there and get them as well. It's all about the salinity. The rockfish thrive anywhere in the bay because it's brackish water. They can go
Right.
to almost fresh water, which they do in the Susquehanna, for the most part, to the ocean, of course. Specks are uh, a little bit more flexible than the redfish.
Yeah.
I've caught nice speckled trout up in Kent Narrows.
Yep.
Um, but as you go south, the salinity level goes up, and the higher likelihood is you're going to find the redfish as the salinity level goes up. So if you want to find the reds, the further south you go, it probably increases your odds considerably.
Yeah. And what time of year would you start targeting the redfish?
They'll be coming in. They'll be coming in soon. They'll be coming in
Yeah.
soon. I actually had a pretty good summer last year targeting redfish on a popping cork. Believe it or not, about 3 feet of water on moving current. And again, that's talked about in Good Plug Time, the second
Yeah.
book, um,
Kayak Chronicles.
the Kayak Chronicles, which really is an entire year of fishing the same locations that are in this book. So if I'm writing about what they are and all of this in here, and then I'm actually putting all of the stuff in the first book into play here. So you get a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then the fall is very good for the redfish when they begin to school up, particularly down in the Kipta Peak area, way down there in Fisherman's Island, coming out of Wise Avenue boat ramp. Um, and they can be found up in the creeks. And I've caught nice redfish right in the what am I thinking of?
Well, you got 8,000 locations that you've fished in the past year.
Yeah. I'm trying. Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know. Something flipped in my mind, then it was gone. But
Yeah. So
gotta read the book.
I think that the further, the salinity is always going to be the trick, right?
Yeah,
And I always find it interesting where certain species are caught. So Eastern Bay, which is still south of some of the areas that you had mentioned, I have not caught a redfish there, but I
no,
have definitely talked to people that catch them, especially at the southern part of there. But I've caught flounder in Eastern Bay.
yeah,
I've caught Spanish mackerel in there. I mean, lots of striped bass, really nice speckled trout. Probably the fattest one I ever caught was in the Wye River. So that was more fresh than anything.
yeah.
And it was It was just sitting on a point in about 3 feet of water, and man, did it slam that thing. But you mentioned the popping cork, and I think that's I think it's worth mentioning because a lot of the people that watch this and listen to this podcast don't use popping corks because it's a southern thing.
Now you're
And
you're you're missing one of the great pleasures of fishing.
yeah,
Trust me.
yeah. So what are you putting under the popping cork if you're going for trout?
It depends. Let me just grab something here.
Because one thing that I'll say is while they're two totally separate species and they do have different behaviors, I have noticed that weakfish and speckled trout will both hit popping corks really well. And the weakfish specifically, when I'm fishing in New Jersey, I do keep a popping cork on me when I'm out on the water, and I'm going to be targeting that.
Rockfish as well.
Oh yeah,
Rockfish
I used
love
to
it.
use those at night
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is the cork that I sort of keep rigged up all the time. It's got 2 feet of fluorocarbon leader and a 16th ounce jig head on it. And what you put under on this is really up to you. I mean, I would break it up. You could put a paddle tail, you could put a jerk shad, you could put a chunk of LY on it. You could put
Yeah.
a shrimp, a live shrimp, or a dead shrimp. And it's so versatile. What I was doing last year, and I was in one of the sections in the book, I caught three really nice reds on this very same rig with a dead shrimp on them. And I was just floating it between points with current flow, and they were just laying in that current flow in a little bit deeper water, and they just crushed it.
Yeah.
But it's really a fun way to fish.
It
Yeah,
is. And for people that have never used it's basically it knocks. So you toss it out there,
yeah,
and as you jig it, you can see that up top, that knocks.
yeah,
And as the bait is jerked, you get that knocking. And that's where I started using it at night for striped bass. And they hear that.
yeah.
And then they come to, I don't know if they think it's like a crab
It
or what.
it allegedly, okay, it simulates feeding fish.
Okay.
Okay, so what it'll do, it'll sit in the water like that, and when you jerk it, the water will get caught here in the cone and make a popping sound. It'll literally pop,
Yeah.
and then you get that rattle, and they just come to it.
Yeah, I love them. Like I said, I always keep it on my kayak. I use it primarily in shallower water, which we don't fish a ton of in New Jersey on the coast. But if I'm back in the sounds, I
Oh yeah,
absolutely, if I'm going to spend a day in a sound, I have one of my rods rigged with popping cork at all times. I just love them, and you can throw a gulp on there, like
oh
you
yeah,
said. Anything, and all you do is it's so easy.
yeah.
You just toss it out wherever, and it's almost like you're fishing with a bobber, but you're not. Like, you can't just do that.
Right.
You work it, but it's easy to see. You toss it wherever you want to launch a mile,
Yeah,
and you hit that point, and as it's coming down, just pop it every once in a while.
yeah.
And I have found, for me personally, that's one of my favorite ways to catch specks. I just seem to be connected to specks when I'm fishing with the popping cork, especially down in North Carolina. It's probably my first thing that I go to down there.
Well, that was this actually. I don't think it was this cork. I think it was an oval cork. It's long since gone. But the very first, I mean, legitimate gator speck I ever caught was on a popping cork with a three and a half inch chartreuse paddle tail on it, and he was 28 inches
Wow,
in about
that's a nice one.
in about 3 feet of water over a grass flat.
Yeah,
So it was like, okay, I'm sold.
yeah, I love it. So let's talk about how you rig that up, though. So you have about 2 feet of fluoro on there.
Yeah.
So how do you know how long to put the? I know what I think and what I do, but I don't know how it compares to what you do. So you have your popping cork. How much? How do you determine how long that leader is going to be before you put your hook on?
To me, I make it real easy. I know my target depth,
Yeah,
so I'm not going to throw this in 18 inches of water. Okay,
right.
I'm going to throw it in as much as 4, but probably somewhere around 3.5. So what I do is I take from where that cork is going to sit in the water. It's going to sit like this, right? It's going to sit like this, and those beads are going to be on the bottom. I take 24 inches from the bottom of that. Ow! I think I just got myself in the leg. From the bottom of that, where it's going to sit in the water, to the eye of the hook. So I've got 24 inches, and because I know I'm not going to throw it super shallow, I'm not going to throw it super deep. I know,
Right.
and I know that if I need to rig this weedless, I can rig it weedless. So if I'm throwing it into grass, and I can cut this off and put something else on it, something weedless. But generally, rule of thumb, 2 feet, and I really don't deviate from that.
Okay. I've always done, I take the depth that I'm at, and I will typically make it maybe 6 inches to a foot less than the total depth if I want to fish the bottom of the water column.
Yeah.
And then, there are some places where I've gone shorter to try to go over the grass, and I determine that's not the way to go. These fish, when you're going through the grass, so when I'm typically doing it, I'm looking for the patches of grass, and I'm trying to hit along the edges of those.
Yeah.
Or if there's like a gap,
Absolutely.
I want it to go through that gap. But what I realize is I want it down deeper, because those fish, they're not sitting on the top,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not necessarily coming up at baits, but they are coming out from the side or from behind, and they're getting these things that are getting swept a little bit closer to the bottom. So that's what I do. But I like the 2 feet based on where, you said 4 feet, 3 feet is typically where you're fishing that. So it sounds like we're pretty close to the same.
And it also works well as like a search technique as well.
Yeah.
Because the sound, I mean, you can, if you're, you can troll around all day and not, just didn't catch anything, and just throw this thing out and just start whipping, these long casts and start, bringing it back. And you're going to create, that subsurface noise and bring fish in too. So it's also, I think it's a good search technique as well.
It is. What's your absolute go-to for, let's say with specs?
Go to.
I mean, are you doing just like a paddle tail or a jerk shad or something like that?
Yeah. One thing that is rigged, that I have rigged 100% of the time, without question, is this. Say, if you guys can see this.
Yeah.
Diesel minnow. All right.
Yep.
Diesel minnow. And my favorite color, this is it, blue pearl glimmer, slays speckled trout. They
and
love
for those that are listening and not seeing, so it's basically like it's like a translucent silverish,
yes,
whitish fish, but it's got the purple hue to it and a lot of flex.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely love, because you're going to get that glitter and that flash looking like scales.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't go wrong with the diesel.
Right.
Diesel minnow, Z-Man,
No.
for those that are unaware. They last forever, and they have incredible action on them.
They are the most durable, longest lasting. You can do anything to them, catch anything bait on the market. I'm just about 100% Z-Man guy for all my stuff. And the best thing about these is, especially fishing 2, 3, 4 feet of water, is these are buoyant. These aren't bass assassins, or the guy up the street makes paddle tails, where they're going to sink like a rock because of the plastisol. These are a completely different animal. They're super stretchy, incredibly durable, and they float, which allows me a lot more flexibility in knowing where my bait is in the water column.
Right.
Because I can weight it with a typical jig head on the top. I can belly weight it. I can put a worm hook in it and not put any weight in it. There's lots of things that you can do with this. So In fact, I was saying this the other day. I said if I only had to fish with one rod, I have my one rod, my JLS uh, custom rod, and my favorite Penn reel. And I would have this on a um, another money bait is
A
a
trout eye.
Texas
Oh,
Texas side jig head.
yeah.
That's the one that's jointed uh,
Yep.
right there. Um,
You get even more action on
never
that.
comes off my rod. Never.
So let me ask you this. All right. So the Texas eye jig head, I always thought was pretty cool because you get that extra action on there.
Mm.
And one of the ways that you can do that without that is by using a loop knot, right? So you get a little bit extra swing
Hmm.
there. How do you tie that? Do you do a direct knot or are you still putting a loop
No, I
knot
still
on
put
that?
a loop knot on it.
Do you? Okay.
I put a loop knot on just about everything.
Is it because it's the easiest? Because it is.
It is. It's really easy. I'm pretty, and I'm not a great knot tire, but that one I'm pretty good at.
Yeah.
I've tied it enough.
For all the fishing I've done there, I literally used maybe 3 or 4
Yeah.
knots. You know,
Yeah.
I had the FG knot. I don't even I don't even remember how to do a uni to uni knot anymore.
Oh, I love
Which
double.
everyone makes fun of me for because it's so easy, but I just forget how to do it. But I do a loop knot, an FG knot, and a dropper loop. Those are the three
There
that I
you go.
use more than
That's
anything.
that's a true flounder fisherman.
Yeah, yeah. But they all with the exception of the dropper loop, I mean it works for everything,
Yeah, it
right?
does. And dropper
You
loop.
know, I use it for bluefish. I use the loop knots.
The only time I use those is when I go down to Kip the Peak for flounder, and I'm fishing the concrete ships.
Oh, see, I need to get down there. I haven't fished Kip to Peak yet, and that's there are a few spots on the Eastern Seaboard and on the Chesapeake that I just really want to fish, and that's one of them. I mean, if people aren't familiar with Kip to Peak, just look on a satellite map and just tell me that that is not a place that you need to go fishing. I mean, first of all, you have every species there. You got the redfish, you got black drum,
Yeah.
you've got speckled trout, you have
Sheep's head.
cobia, sheep's head, cobia come through there. Man, striped bass are through there all the time.
Yep.
What am I missing? I mean, there's it's literally anything is going to be around
Well,
those ships.
you're right there. At the ocean, so you could catch
Yeah.
sharks and all kinds
Oh
of,
yeah, flounder.
and
Flounder is
and the flounder are really good there too. When the tide's ripping, coming through those ships, hit those creases between the ships.
yeah,
It's pretty good.
man. So do you ever go down there and target fluke?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
usually get down once or twice a year. In fact, I think the last trip or next to the last trip in the second book is flounder fishing down at Kip the Peak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to get your second book. I haven't gotten that yet. As a matter of fact, when did that come out?
Uh
Was that last year?
it was it was it was just before Christmas.
Okay.
Just
Well,
before.
that's why I missed.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like December 1st, say something like right around there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I have to. I have to get that. It's funny because I follow you and have followed your fishing trips, and I would love to see it in the book. It is, in the chat, Bayside Dave said, are your books my Bible? Well, they could be. I am very good at identifying people that I can learn from, and I do use their books and if they don't have books, their social media posts and everything to learn. And I definitely use your stuff. I remember when we first met on the water the first time, we had talked about it and I had said, you got to have a book, and you just kind of looked at me and smiled, and I was like, oh, there you go. maybe there's a book coming. So yeah, I was like, maybe I'm going to learn something
Yeah,
here.
the first one was really tough to write. But once I got it down, the layout and the photos. I mean, each book has over 100 photos,
Yeah.
of locations and things and various things. Um, the layout is a challenge. The writing is relatively easy, but organizing it and have it all make sense and flow, and believe me, I'm not Hemingway by any stretch of the imagination, but struggling to make something that's informative and readable without being too technical at times, or maybe uh, going off track, which I could have a tendency to do now and then. I find a challenge when I'm writing.
Yeah, I thought you did it. I love the book. It would be very difficult for me to write a book. I just I don't have the vocabulary. I don't have the writing skills. I just don't. I can lay out a training. I can speak, but you want me to write something? No. Now my son's a good writer. Maybe I'll have him help me at some point, but
Well, you know what
I couldn't do it.
it sort of came down to. I had 17 years as a teacher, right, and I used a lot of
Yeah.
lecture and PowerPoint in my lectures at school, and so basically, I just looked at it like a series of PowerPoint slides,
Right.
right? So it's like I said, when I was in college, I learned how to take two sentences and turn it into 4 pages. When I graduated from college and went in the police department, they taught me how to turn 4 pages into two sentences.
Yeah.
So it was I've gotten it from both ends, the
Right.
overabundance to the minimalist. So hopefully I found a happy medium there that people seem to like.
Yeah, I thought it was good, very informative. You know what? I did read it while I was sick, and I couldn't hit the water. I did read your book, and it was just something that it actually kind of bothered me because I couldn't do any of the stuff. I was like, oh, I got to go this. I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to get back on the water and head to this area. So hopefully this year I'll be out testing out some of your stuff, real world instead of just thinking about it.
When you're ready, you come on down, and
Yeah, I'll be down. We'll be hooking up this
we'll be
year
hooking up.
again, definitely.
And if I got
I,
if I got to tow you around, I'll tow you around. That big Hobie's got a lot of horsepower in her.
yeah, a lot of people have said they'll tow me around, and it's like, yeah, I lost a lot of weight, but I'm still pretty heavy. I don't know. You want to be doing that. And anyone who has ever actually towed somebody around, they're like, yeah, I don't want to.
I've actually done that a couple times. I
I've done it once. It can be brutal. Oh man. Well, I don't think I'm that bad. I
no.
think I'm recovered enough. I'll be in good shape. All right. So speckled trout. So let's talk about fluke. When are you going to be looking for the fluke down near Chesapeake?
I generally don't get down there till August.
That's a good time of year for them down
Yeah,
there.
when things um, slow down because of the hot water,
Yep. You go to the
and you
deep.
don't want to be targeting rockfish. I mean, you can find them, but I really, like I said, I don't target rockfish unless I'm in a tournament or something. I
Yeah.
do catch them. But when the water gets to a certain level, we get to 80s, and even in the bay, especially in the shallows, it can be well over 90 degrees, that water temperature.
Yeah.
And the mortality rate when you bring those fish out of the water it's extraordinarily high. In fact, I don't want to open a can of worms, but if Maryland wants to actually do something for rockfish, they ought to be closing July and half of August when the water's 90 degrees, and
Right.
people are taking fish out of the water, and the mortality rate goes up considerably. Just my opinion. But to answer your question, usually when things slow down because the water gets hot, I'll make a run down there, and I'll hit the concrete ships. And then I'll go down the Wise Avenue boat ramp, which is at the very end um, of the peninsula there, and
Yeah.
just go out there and throw baits at the riprap and go up in the creeks and look for some redfish and make a couple days out of it.
That sounds like a plan. All right. So let me ask you this because we're getting close to the hour. What are let's say somebody wants to just hit the Chesapeake and just go out and explore and just see what's out there. Again, a lot of the people that we do have a lot of people in Maryland and Virginia that watch this and especially listen to the podcast. So I don't want to make it sound like there's nobody, but there are a lot of people that maybe haven't tried the Chesapeake like they should have or could. And, I think part of it is they just never did it. They
Mm-hmm.
never thought about it. What are maybe 2 or 3 spots that you think everybody should try to get to, not spots, but areas to fish if they really want to get a sense of what you think the best of the Chesapeake Bay fishing is?
Well, I think to really get a sense of the best of it, if to someone who really didn't know what they were doing and just wanted to just go fishing and have a great experience, we have an incredible charter fleet on the bay, and not the big old boats that at least
Right.
I grew up with as a kid. But I mean, we're talking about 20, 25-foot boats that are new boats, that are open boats, and a great group of captains who specialize in small charters. When we went out that last time,
That was great.
yeah, the on the redfish trip, right?
Yep.
I mean, that
Yep.
was just like that. But you can find them on the eastern shore. You can find them on the western shore. You can find them up north. You can find them down south. Now, if you're looking to get the true experience with the redfish and even bluefish, um, you would want to come more south into say the Solomon's Island area.
Right.
Is a very good location because it's a relatively short run across the bay to very serious deep water fishing grounds where the captains are jigging and trolling out there, and mostly jigging now. They don't. Used to be everybody trolled. Now
Yeah.
most of them are jigging. One in particular, Captain Pete Dahlberg, is outstanding captain. He kills it all the time. He just runs 90, 100 plus miles in a trip from point to point, location to location,
Yeah.
looking for shallow water fish. He's outstanding. So if anybody wants to just go take a great charter with a captain who's really goes the extra mile, he's the man. Um, uh, Four Seasons, I believe it's Four Seasons charter service, Captain Dahlberg. But there's others.
Where are they out of?
He's out of Solomon's, the Solomon's
Oh,
area.
he is out of Solomon's.
Yeah, out
Okay.
of Solomon's area. So he's very good. And there's other guys on the Eastern Shore who are great as well. Um, so if you're looking to take a great trip and catch some fish and have a good experience, that's where I would start. Um, Again, the further south you come, the more opportunity there is.
Right.
You're not going to catch a whole lot of bluefish, coming out of Baltimore Harbor, right? Can you get a
Right.
charter up there? Yeah, sure, you can get a charter. You can go catch some rockfish, absolutely. But if you want the full experience, you got to come down to Solomon's, Crisfield, down into the Virginia side of the neck there on the southern
Yeah.
end. If
I
you
was going to say Crisfield is that has a lot
Yeah.
to offer down there too.
Yeah, Crisfield. I was going to say, if you were a kayak fisherman,
Yeah.
I would say Crisfield would be my number one recommendation. Primarily because there's a great state park right there,
Yeah.
and you can bring the family and throw the boat up on top or whatever you do with it, and camp, and quite literally you can launch from the state park, and you are a cast away from catching good fish or having beautiful fishing opportunity right there. So I would say if you're a kayak guy in Jersey or Delaware and you're looking for a change of pace or some place to spend a weekend, relatively inexpensive with the opportunity to really catch some fish, I would start in Crisfield.
You ever get lost down there?
What, in Crisfield?
Yeah, around
No,
Crisfield. Isn't Crisfield
Crisfield's like my second home.
okay?
I spend
I could see people getting lost there.
Now getting lost. How can you get lost in Crisfield? There's one road in, one road out.
No, not. I mean, on the
Oh,
water.
on the water? Oh
Yeah.
no, no! You can't get lost in the water in Chrisfield. No
No.
way.
Okay.
James said, "Get well. You can get up in those creeks."
Well, that's what I mean. I
Oh,
mean, it's like a rabbit warren in there, isn't
oh
it?
yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. In fact, the first book, the creek examples I use on fishing creeks and things like that. Those are all in the interior of Chrisfield or James
Yeah.
Island.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a creek fishing tutorial in that first book for James Island. Um, yeah, but you know what? It doesn't matter. You just keep keep following the heavy current. You come out somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. It's what's pretty cool though is, I before I started fishing the Chesapeake, it was one style of fishing. When I'm fishing the coast of New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, it's pretty much the same. It's the same type of fishing. Yeah, the depths change a little bit. It gets a little bit shallower, in some of the areas. But you can catch the same fish in a totally different setting once you hit the Chesapeake.
Mm-hmm.
These little creeks that you would never even think about, if they're running off into a bay in New Jersey. All of a sudden those become amazing spots
Yes.
and great fish where you're thinking, I'm typically fishing for this at this time of year at this depth, and maybe that depth is 14 to 16 feet, right? And that's not how it is in the Chesapeake. That may be 3 feet of water.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different thing. You
Yeah.
hook some of these nice trout as an example in shallow water. That's a whole different thing than when you're hooking a big weak fish in deeper water. It's
Yeah.
a whole different fight. It's a whole different presentation. It's a whole different type of fishing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that kind of draws me back there. My buddy Randy always wants to go to the Chesapeake, and I'm like, I'm going with you. Let's go.
We've been talking about this for years. We need to come down. You guys need to make that trip.
Yeah.
We'll meet in Chrisfield, and I'll take you out on those southern flats on that low tide, and then we'll get up. And when that tide's rushing in, especially in the evening after that water's cooled down and that sun started to set in the middle of the summertime, those rockfish will get up there and they will start chasing bait everywhere, and
Yeah.
it's I'm smiling inside. It's just so much fun, so much fun.
That's the thing. If you're feeling that, then, well, first of all, you want to go fishing tomorrow.
Yes.
So do I. I have to wait a little bit. And unfortunately, I had my first day to go fishing this year was going to be the opening of Flounder in New Jersey, and it's early, but it looks like it's going to be a blowout. And I'm probably going to delay my launch, so it gets even worse. And every time I do one of these episodes, I get really excited, and yeah, I think I'm going to have to delay. And I even checked the Chesapeake, and the wind looks pretty bad in the places that I would want to head to on Sunday. So we'll see, though. But man, talking to you and just thinking back about the times that we did hit the water, yeah, I got to get down there again. We've got to get down there. I'd love to meet you at Chrisfield. Chrisfield is a spot that I definitely want to go. I said Kip to Peak is another one. Those are probably the two top ones for me that I haven't fished in the Chesapeake that I just feel like I have to. It's just something about them that, maybe it's just looking at the maps, it just kind of draws me to them. I'm like, there's so much opportunity here. I just got to get out there.
Yeah, I think that's the key word. You must have been reading my mind. It's all about opportunity. It's like when I was down last week, it looked like 2 nice days, Tuesday and Wednesday, right? Hit my first location first, hit my second location second. It all looked good. Then I get back after the first day, and the wind forecast completely changed. It's completely ass backwards. It's coming out of the east northeast. I'm thinking, you got an east wind on the eastern shore. I mean, really, that's a death sentence. That's a go home.
Yeah.
But when I got up in the morning, we had gotten some overnight rain, and it was really heavy overcast, and it was actually blowing a little bit more northeast than more north than east. It eventually swung around to the northeast at the end of the day. But I knew the area, and I just basically chose a grass flat that had northeast and east wind protection, and
Yeah.
we're on them.
That's
We
great.
were
That's something you don't get a lot of times with saltwater is wind protection.
yes,
You know,
yeah,
you go out in the marshes, there's no, it doesn't matter. There's no protection
yeah,
out there.
and you can always find a creek to fish. I mean, if you
Yeah.
really want to go fishing, you can always find a creek to fish.
Right. Yeah. We have, Bayside Dave is in the chat and he's talking about, he'd want to fish from shore down there and find some spots.
From shore?
Dave is he's a shore fisherman. Like he surf fishing and
Oh, surf fishing.
backwater fishing from shore. Yeah, that's his thing.
Okay,
Um,
I have to.
yeah,
I'd have to think about that one.
yeah. There are some places where you can't. The problem is when you get into Maryland, it's really hard to find any place that you can touch the water and not be on somebody else's property. It's almost impossible as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and that makes it really tough on us kayakers.
Yeah,
And that's like one of the reasons. It's almost like a shameless plug. I keep saying it, but the it's about where. It's not about the spot. It's about where do I get onto the water.
yeah,
And that in and of itself is a challenge. And the first book really gives um, an entire list of quality locations where anybody could launch a kayak or a small boat and be in an opportunity to catch quality fish very, very quickly.
yeah. I remember going down and we had spots that we wanted to go, and we're like, all right, it's a 5 mile pedal.
Yeah,
So it's 5 miles before we're fishing.
right,
So, at least where we want to fish. Of course, we're trolling and casting
right.
points as we're going, but it's just to see if we can get anything along the way because a 5 mile pedal, it's going to take you an hour, a little over an hour to get there.
Hmm.
And luckily we were going downriver. So we at least had, and the tide's correct. You're at least going
Yeah,
with the current. That helps a bit. But coming home, you just want to cry
that
sometimes.
never seems to work out for me. I'm always going against the tide.
Yeah, it seems that way. We've been lucky, especially like where we launch on the Y. It's you're always going to have that flow early in the morning to get you out.
Yeah.
Just because of where we're launching, we're getting the current with us. But yeah, if for those that haven't done it, you got to go out and check out the Chesapeake. And if you have a kayak, take a look at the wind. Sometimes a day that's blown out on the coast is not necessarily blown out on the eastern shore.
Hmm.
You have the wind protection there. If it's coming from a direction you don't like, it might be coming from a direction that you do like. Some of these bays, it doesn't matter if you can find spots within the bays, you can find a good launch point. It doesn't matter which direction wind it is. If you have a launch point there, it doesn't matter if it's a north, you can find places. If it's
Hmm.
a south wind, you can find places. Just as an example, again, Eastern Bay, it's almost a full enclosed circle.
Yeah, it
You
is.
know, so you can get in there and you can fish anywhere. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of you got to be careful in Eastern Bay as well. I just want to say that you don't necessarily want to on certain winds go across it because it can get really treacherous.
Eastern Bay is a big body of water.
It's huge. It's absolutely
Yeah,
huge. And
yeah. I
Randy, who's actually in the chat right now, he's the one I keep talking about that we had down there. We were going to head into it and across it the one day, and we got there and we looked at it and we're like, nope, not doing it.
why would you even want to do that?
Well, we
That
go offshore too, so
but that's way too much open water for me. I
well that was definitely too much open water with the wind that we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, the distance wasn't that big of a deal, but when we were looking at it, we're like, look, you've got the river coming here, you got another one coming here, then you got the wind going this way. And we're like, no.
No.
So we kind of tucked back up. We've done really well in that area though. But we just kind of turned around and we said, all right, well, and the reason why though, full disclosure, is we knew for a fact that people were catching reds on a specific point that we could reach. So
Uh,
Randy got the word from a friend. He's like, yeah, we're catching reds right here. Once you head down there if you can tomorrow, and we couldn't get there.
Now you were coming from Wye River,
Yeah,
and you
it's
were
a long
coming
way.
across all the way from Wye River.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't you come up and launch out of Crab Alley Bay or up in that area? You'd have been
So
a hell of a lot closer.
we would have been closer. I don't think at the time we knew about those.
Oh, see,
We were just kind of
there's like if you go from um, Kent Narrows all the way down on the top side of of the bay there, there's like 4 or 5 launch locations, 4 or 5
yeah.
ramps.
Yeah. Do you fish the Narrows in your kayak?
Yeah,
That seems like a pretty scary location
yeah. I
with
don't
those
go up.
currents.
I don't go up into the narrows themselves. I fish
Okay.
the south side of the narrows.
Okay, so you stay down below, so it comes out there, and there's a really sharp break off in depth, and it kind of if you're looking at your computer at the map off to the left, which is the west, it looks like it's shallower, but you've got some nice channels in there too.
Yeah, the water coming through the narrows is pretty deep. There's also a nice
Yeah.
seawall as you're coming south
Yes.
along there. There's some old riprap and a nice seawall, and right on the northern end of that seawall, there's a big drop right there.
Okay.
A big drop. That seawall is nice, but then again, that's not a place I would recommend a kayaker on the weekends because of boat traffic.
Right.
Boat
Right.
traffic through there in the summertime on the weekends is it's like 95.
Yeah, and
It's very
I would
busy.
say, yeah, and with the currents coming through there, I
Yeah,
mean, it's deep there for a reason. It's because it's pushing a ton of water
yeah.
through there, and it is narrow, and so it's coming through there with velocity.
Well,
So you're going to get spun if you don't know what you're doing.
that's the break that makes Ken Island, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes it an island. So that current flow through there. Um, but I stay on the eastern shore side, back up. Forget the name of that point. Anyway, there's a couple points down there that I really like on various tides, and I've actually done pretty well there on rockfish. In fact, I won a tournament there. Right there on that one point, I caught about a
Bluff?
28 inch rockfish. It was a winner for a tournament.
Was that Bluff Point, or are you north of that?
No, it's the first major point south of the Narrows on the left hand side as you're going
Oh,
down.
yeah. So yeah, because you
I
had
can't
that
remember the
cove
name of
there.
right now.
Yeah, you had the cove back in there.
Yes, yeah, that point it
Okay.
takes you back to that cove,
Okay.
and
Yeah, I don't know the name of it.
that point is has been very good. Has been very good. Um, but what they did is, I think they were having a lot of erosion problems on that point, and about 2 years ago, they put a bunch of riprap up there.
Okay.
So it's riprap that not
Well,
only
even
comes
better.
off the point, but also runs vertically and perpendicular. It kind of screwed things up with the current flow around there.
Yeah.
But the riprap itself, most of it is it's like 90% submerged. You have to be careful because if you don't know it's there, you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
So approach it carefully. Um, but it does. But that riprap presents opportunity as well.
I love fishing riprap.
Yeah. Oh, me
You know,
too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you can get, depending on where you are. I've caught a lot of weak fish on the backside of riprap. But it's pretty rare to find that in New Jersey, where I'm doing most of my fishing
Yeah.
in the saltwater. But I love seeing it. Like I'll go back into a marsh and I'll see something that resembles it,
Yeah.
and usually back there I'm picking up the striped bass
Yeah.
on the back end. They're usually smaller, but they just love it.
They-
I mean, you think about it, it makes sense why they would love it. It's got that current, it's got the break there,
Yep.
and they're just feeding left and right.
And
All right,
there's always that little trough along the bottom where
yes,
they're going to sit in there and find behind a rock, especially when that falling tide.
that's where a popping cork would work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'll help you float around it and not get snagged as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm the king of snag and riprap, so
I love throwing hard baits around riprap.
Yeah, for me, I do that, and I just hear it clanking off of stuff. Like, I don't have the touch. I don't have the touch that some other people have.
Yeah, definitely. Just throw them, troll across the top of that point, and then come back, circle back around, and throw either side.
Yeah,
it's money, man.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to try that one out. I definitely fished that area. But hey, thanks for coming on. We're over our hour now. Thanks for sticking around for it. I'm looking forward to getting on the water with you. I'm hoping that some people that haven't really done the Chesapeake but live really close like I do, within a couple of hours, it is well worth it. I mean, it is well worth going down there because you have similar species, and like I said, I've caught flounder all the way up into Eastern Bay.
Mm-hmm.
But you can pick up the specks. You can pick up the redfish there, Spanish mackerel. All of those things are going to be way up there, and the striped bass. Yeah. The striped bass are going to be there. Just everyone, please make sure if you're going into Maryland, make sure you understand the regulations, because we think in New Jersey and New York that we have it bad as far as changes all the time. Like, the season's open today, it's closed tomorrow. Yeah. You can only do this. You can't fish in these. It's open, but you can't fish here.
Right.
And they take it very seriously. So make sure you're not getting caught.
We had that during the spring rockfish run, because the vast majority of the spawning rockfish on the entire East Coast are up in our creeks.
Yeah.
So those are. Those are, here's the line, don't cross the line sort of situation. But right now, and like I said, up until May 15th, the entire Chesapeake Bay is closed for rockfish.
Right. Yeah. And
so striped bass.
Striped bass, rockfish. So let me ask you something, though, because this I'm not sure about. Is it targeting?
That's a good question. The way it's been explained to me, and the way I have been proceeding in my search for speckled trout, is that if you are, you cannot target them.
Okay.
All right.
That's my understanding as well.
If you catch one, you are to treat it gently, return it to the water, and move on.
Right.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Yeah, that was my understanding as well. But that was from a few years ago when I was down there fishing. There were other things where, you can target a fluke. You just can't keep it when it's out of season. Yeah. Right. So
you guys have all these regulations on flounder. It's kind of, and Carolina's like that too.
Well, Carolina, they brought it on themselves because the people that make the decisions are all, I don't want to go into it's like an entire episode. I listened to 3 podcasts on it with people involved in the regs, and they're like, there's nothing we can do. These families of people own all the voting on this because they're captains and everything. Even though a lot of them don't actually do it, they have the license so they can keep their voting. And they basically destroyed the fishery. And they destroyed all the oysters down there in North Carolina. I mean, you go back in the sounds, there's nothing. Pamlico, there's like no oysters left.
So you're saying the politics down there is worse than up here, huh?
Oh yes, for fishing. Yep. Yeah. So they destroyed it. So yeah, they had a couple of years ago. They had like a 3-day season or a 2-day season. I think they had like a week last year or something like that.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy. There's nice fish down there too.
Yeah, it is. I've gone down a couple times. I enjoyed fishing down there.
Yeah, Outer Banks is one of my favorite places to go fishing. It's just fun. Love it. All right. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to announce later in the week the guest for next week, but I hope to see you all back. So everyone, thanks again. And until next week, get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.